if I do a little conversation. We're live. I know we're live. What do you want? Hey, you look kind of cool in that uniform tonight. Yeah, why'd you put this thing on me? You'll find out. So, are you ready, Eugene?
Yeah, I was born ready to talk.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, action!
Yeah.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to DMACT Ministries. I'm Father Steve Ryan.
And I'm Eugene.
And we're here to do our Tuesdays at the Tabernacle with Eugene to talk about one of our saints, the saints in the church.
Yeah, there sure is a lot of saints in the church, and it's nice to learn about a different one each time.
Well, tonight, Eugene, I have a very special saint who I'd like to introduce to you and the audience. And his name is Saint Martin de Porres.
St. Martin de Porres? Where?
Behind you.
Oh, that's St. Martin. Well, hey, he's a black saint like me.
Yes, I think it's very nice that we're going to talk about a saint who is black tonight on our program. And it's good for you to know that he's not only black like you, but he's from the Americas.
Where'd he grow up? New York?
No, he grew up in South America, in Peru.
So, what was his name again?
Martin de Porres.
Father Steve, give me the basics, because I really don't know much about him, and I should. He looks like me.
Yes, you should know something about him. Well, Martin de Porres, in short, was born in 1579.
That's a long time ago.
A long time ago, in Peru, in Lima, Peru. And he was a religious, he belonged to a religious order.
Was it the Salesians of Don Bosco?
No, Eugene, the Salesians of Don Bosco were not around then. It was the Dominican order. He was a Dominican brother.
Oh, hey, is that why you put this thing on me?
Yes, because I want you to remember that St. Martin, he wore like a white habit with a black stripe on it because he was in the Dominican order as a Dominican brother.
How long did he live?
Well, I'm going to tell his story, but he lived till he was 59 years old, and he died in 1639, and he was a canonized saint in the church.
He made it all the way to Rome? I mean, they canonized him?
Yes, they did.
It's good to know that some of the black brothers and sisters made it to be saints too.
You're right, because we're used to thinking of saints only being from Europe. And it's great to know that there are saints from Americas, and it's great to know that there's saints from all continents, and they have all different colors of skin. Because saints are holy people, and beautiful people, and Martin was too.
What was he known for?
Okay, I'm going to get to the story, but he was a Dominican brother who served the poor, who was like a doctor, he was an infirmarian, he was somebody who brought a social worker, he brought a lot of good to a lot of people.
What's he the patron saint of?
He is the patron saint of those mixed race people. He's the patron saint of black Americans. He's the patron saint of public health workers. And he's also a patron saint to promote racial harmony.
That's something we need today. Boy, we ought to talk about that.
Well, we will. Anyway, he was noted for his work for the poor, and he even set up a children's orphanage, and he did a lot of good for people, including his own Dominican brothers in the monastery. So he did so much good way back in the day.
What else about him?
Well, I mean, he prayed a lot. He was a good prayer.
Mm-hmm. And?
He fasted. I mean,
He wasn't as fat as you?
No, he wasn't. He was probably pretty lean. I think he was a vegetarian.
A vegetarian? Huh? He didn't eat meat?
No, apparently not.
Did he have any miracles?
He did have miracles, many miracles in his life. Healings, miraculous knowledge, instantaneous cures when he prayed through the intercession of Jesus and Mary for people, and he had a great ability to communicate and love animals.
Oh, that's nice. I like dogs too. Yeah, even in the picture over here, they got a dog in the picture.
Right, so he's a famous saint in a lot of ways.
Okay, now, the whole story from the beginning, because I want to get to know this Martin de Porres.
Okay, here we go. Martin de Porres Velasquez was born in the city of Lima, Peru, on the 9th of December, 1579.
Who were his parents?
Well, his father was a Spanish nobleman whose name was Don Juan de Porres.
Sounds like one of those conquistadores. De Porres.
Yeah, he was. He was like, sort of like a conquistador. I mean, back then, those Spanish guys, they came over here, they started businesses, they were trading with Spain.
Yeah. That's when it was a Spanish colony.
Right, you get the idea.
So, what about his mother?
Well, his mother was a black woman, and she was taken from her country in Africa and brought to Panama as a slave.
Oh, that's too bad.
Well, it was bad, but Mr. de Porres fell in love with her, and he married her. Her name was Anna Velasquez.
Huh? He married her, and then they had children?
Yes, they did. He took her from Panama and brought her to Lima, Peru, and they had 2 children. One was Martin, the oldest one, and a boy, and the second one was a girl. He had a sister, and her name was Anna. And Mr. and Mrs. Velasquez stayed and supported their children for a few years.
Only for a few years? Uh-oh, what happened?
Mr. de Porres walked away. Senor de Porres left poor Anna with the 2 children, and he went off to do all his, business. And poor Mrs. de Porres, Anna, was left with the 2 kids.
Oh, what did she do? Well, what did she do?
Well, what she did was, she did laundry, and she hustled to try to make a living for the 2 kids, but it wasn't easy.
So he was from a broken home, and he had like divorced parents.
That's right. Even back in those days, in the old days, it was a broken home. And it was hard. It was hard. But young Martin, he grew up and he had 2 years of school.
Only 2?
Back in those days, to have 2 years of school was common. You didn't get that many years of school back then.
Then he went to work, right?
He did. Eugene, he went to work and he got a job as a barber.
A barber? You sure as heck need a barber. Look at the size of his hair. It's out of control.
I know, I was going to try to wait till after Corona to cut it. But I think I might have to make a move soon.
So he went to a barber shop?
No, like a barber in those days was more than just cutting hair. It was like a surgeon. It was somebody who took people's blood. It was like bloodletting.
What? That's crazy. He was only a teenager.
Yeah, but he knew how to be a surgeon. He knew how to take people's blood. He knew about herbs and medicines that came from plants. And he was able to help a lot of people, and he always prayed for all the people who came in who were sick.
Pretty impressive, Martin. Well, he was a prayer, huh? So he liked to pray?
He did. He spent hours in prayer at night. And as he grew older, he prayed more and more. And people said that when he prayed, there was like a brilliant light that shone from him because he was in union with God, even as a young man. And that's why he felt he had a vocation to the religious life.
Like you? Like the Salesians?
Yes, he felt he would be called to be a Dominican. Since they had a Dominican monastery there in Lima, Peru, he asked if he could come and to live with the brothers and be a brother.
Did they say yes?
You know what? At the beginning, they said you can only volunteer, but you cannot be a brother.
Why?
Because there was laws in Peru at that time. And the Peruvian law said that only those who came from Spain or from Europe could become a brother or a priest in the religious order.
Oh, that's a ripoff. He's a talented guy. He can do a lot of good, and he loves Jesus.
Well, he volunteered for about the first 8 years or so in the monastery as a helper, and then they finally saw his goodness. So the superior, the father director, he made an exception and said, okay, Martin, you can become a religious brother.
Thank God, justice, finally.
Yes, back in those days, and even to today, change is slow sometimes, but thank God he broke the barrier and became the first black Dominican brother that we had in the Americas. And then in 1895, after being in the convent and doing all kinds of tasks.
What did he do?
He did whatever they asked him to do. He cleaned, he worked in the kitchen, he answered the door. Anything that needed to be done, he did. And after a while, he took his vows as a brother.
And what else?
And then they gave him more responsibilities. He started to distribute the money that was given to the monastery to be used for the poor. So he went out through the city, and all the poor people, he'd give them enough money to have dinner and maybe some clothing if they needed it.
Ah, what else did he do?
He was a good medic. Well, he was good at healing, like I said, so he used his skills, and he gave people the right medicine when they needed it. And he also, at times, even did procedures on people to help them get better. But he had a special secret.
What was it? Was it those medicines that he made out of the plants?
No, he prayed over people. He not only gave them medicine and did some procedures, but he prayed over people.
And did they get better?
They did. As a matter of fact, many people got better, and Martin became known throughout all of the city as being somebody who had a special gift for healing.
Hey, he took the vows to be a brother, and he wore a white, what do you call this thing?
Habit, like a white habit of a Dominican brother.
And did his father ever come back and visit him?
Yes, Eugene. His father, Don Juan de Porres, did come back to the monastery and visit him and said, what are you doing here, being a brother?
He didn't want him to be a religious?
No, he said, that's stupid.
You should have said, where were you when I needed you? You left me.
But he didn't. He forgave his father, right? And actually his father also realized that Martin was called by God for a special vocation. So he let him go.
Was Martin mad at his father for leaving? Come on, tell me. Because a lot of guys can be really mad when their fathers walk away.
And it's a problem, so sometimes they are mad for a while. But reconciliation and healing happens. And Martin was an instrument of reconciliation. So it was really, really cool that he forgave his father, and throughout his whole life, he made his father know that he was loved.
What was life like in the monastery?
Well, at the Holy Rosary Monastery, it was a home to 300 Dominican priests and brothers, okay? And not all of them were so nice to Martin.
Why? Because he was black.
Yes, I'm not gonna lie. There was prejudice. There were some of the brothers, even in the religious community, who called him the mulatto dog.
Oh, why?
Well, see, his father was Spanish or Latin, and his mother was black, and since his skin was black, they made fun of him. Not everybody, but some.
Man, I hate that nonsense. That's wrong. It even happens to me once in a while, and I'm annoyed by it.
Yes, and it does bring out anger and frustration when people call you names. Some of them said, Martin, let's face it, you're lucky to be a brother because you're illegitimate.
That's wrong. He's not illegitimate. All children are beloved children of God.
That's right. And people have racist attitudes sometimes. And so many of those guys in the monastery even were affected by the culture in which they lived at that time.
So did Martin punch him in the face? Because that's what I would have done.
Eugene, justice is achieved through good example, through kindness and love, not returning insult to one insult with another.
I know, I didn't really mean it, everybody, but come on, people get tired. How can you get people to change racist attitudes, even religious people who should know better?
Well, Martin said, I will be an agent of change, and through prayer and offering it up, but also through speaking up gently and clearly, and through good example and kindness, he was able to help make a change in those people.
But change in society, man, it's not easy. Look what's happening, Father Steve, right now in Minneapolis. Mr. George Floyd, he was basically strangled by a police officer, and there was no reason for it. It was wrong. He kept his knee on the guy's neck for like 8 minutes. It was totally brutal.
Eugene, very horrific what happened. And very racist actually, in the sense that the police officer who has been charged with murder did a horrific thing in killing another person.
Yeah, he's going to jail, that guy.
But it has released the groundswell of the anger that you're feeling and the frustration and anger over police brutality and racist attitudes. And so, I can't deny. But one thing that I do know is that we can learn from St. Martin, that we have to, effective change comes by nonviolence and by love.
You're right. Hey, there was another guy in the United States who was pretty famous, and we studied him in school, Martin Luther King Jr. And he said that we must rise to the heights of meeting physical force with soul force. And he advocated peaceful means to change. So, like Martin, I think that's got to be part of the plan and program.
You're right. So, look, that cop in Minnesota and all racial profiling done over the decades, man, it's exploding feelings in people. And I know when you faced it as a black man, you feel that pain. But you know what, Eugene, please, I think that all of us, you and white people and black people, need to stick with the plan of love and stick with the plan of God. Stick with plenty of Jesus. calling out injustice, social action, but patience, determination, right? And asking for dignity and respect and dialogue, communication.
Yeah, it looks like black people are tired of being patient.
Well, I beg that they can be patient, but also calling all of us to change. And sometimes it does take patience to make change. You know, Eugene, I've been trying too as a priest to speak about pro-life in the womb, but that one takes time too. So we just keep on loving and we keep on calling it out. And little by little, maybe we can change the way people's attitudes about abortion are, just like we can change people's attitudes about racism.
Father Steve, what's scary about what I've seen in the last few days on the news is that some people really are so ticked off they want revenge.
Yes, one pastor, Jonathan Thomas, he said that there was a lot of people that weren't activists. There were some there who were anarchists. And in the cities in our country, that the best way we can advocate change is by dialogue and asking our officials to make sure that there is justice. And to burn people's property and so forth has been a real painful thing for all of us to watch. And I know we all feel very weirded out by it and very, very somewhat ashamed that violence is breaking out.
I agree. You know, I did a paper on Dr. Martin Luther King for school, and he said that violence never brings permanent peace. It does not solve social problems. It merely creates more complicated ones. It seeks to humiliate rather than win understanding. It seeks to annihilate rather than convert. It thrives on hatred rather than love. So I'm begging everybody, Father Steve, let's talk, let's love, let's go to God, and not violence and destruction. That's not going to make America better.
Eugene, you are preaching so well and so beautiful. And you're right. These distractions of destruction of property and violent actions, they hurt society. And they cause more distraction from the real issue. It's totally senseless. And I mean all people, black and white, need to not be filled with outbursts of rage, but it's totally senseless. But look at the issue and make a change. And I think God and our Christian faith says something that can really help us about the dignity of human people.
So, okay, but listen, you said something important. Do you really think that God and prayer and Jesus Christ can really help us as a society to change racist attitudes?
I really do. Yes, I do. I think God is a solution. I'm going to tell you something, Eugene, all right? Since I was young, there was more God in society. But lately, we don't have God. We don't talk about God. You don't hear about him on the TV. You don't hear much about God in school, in public schools at all. They can't mention him. And you don't hear about God in the family because people think like God is a thing of the past and he's way in the background. And he doesn't have anything to do with our lives. But if we have God in our lives and his love, we always have a window for understanding, even in pain. So I think that we have to realize that we're made in the image and likeness of God. And therefore all people are beautiful, and that way we're not going to be racist or discriminatory against others. But we get to see them as they truly are.
I even seen a few police officers on the news. They got down on one knee and prayed with the people.
Now that's what I'm talking about. Yes, we need more God in all this. And I admit too, Eugene, I had trouble sleeping after watching the news and seeing what's going on in America. I mean, Corona was scary enough, and now racial tensions. People seem to be exploding.
And the solution is we need God. Period.
We need God. We all need God. We need the love of God to touch our hearts in a very difficult time.
Okay, now, back to my man, Martin. Hey, what was he doing at the monastery, and how did he change the prejudice in his time?
Well, Martin did quite a bit at the monastery. Like I said, the best gift we can give is a holy life, to make people understand God's love and to change and to be in peace. So he lived a holy life. He was attached to the Blessed Sacrament. He had devotion to Our Lady, Mary. He was joyful. He never returned insult with more insult. And his example inspired the other brothers because of his love and his charity. He was known as Martin the Charitable.
Okay, well, before he died, what else? Anything else unusual about him?
I could go pretty quick now. Look, Eugene, by 1615, he was 34 years old, and he got more responsibilities in the infirmary. He also was instrumental in founding an orphanage near the monastery for kids who didn't have a home.
Who paid for it?
Funny thing was this. Whenever Martin wanted to do something for God, he would just pray for it, and money would come.
Woo! I wish I had that magic.
No, but it's true. If you do good, and you've seen this, if you do good for people, money will come, and the money for the ministry and for all the works will continue to come. And I've witnessed it in my life because I know that money came all the time when we needed it for the mission.
Like DMACT.
Right, it's coming, you know, and I want to thank all our benefactors for giving us money. So he handled money, and he handled lots of money, but he used it for the poor. He bought blankets and shirts and candles, and he even bought candy for kids, and he gave them a place to stay, and he worked with extraordinary holiness.
What were some of the things that happened? Oh, yeah. He must have been like really, really close to God. And did he make more miracles?
He did make more miracles. He had instantaneous cures. He even had a rapport with animals that they seemed to come around him. I mean, his holiness attracted everybody.
When people came to the door for visiting, he took care of every single person who came, huh?
He sure did. Holiness works wonders. All kinds of people came to see him, and they all came away feeling closer to God, and their hearts were lighter and more at peace through the love of God.
Did he ever get in trouble?
Yes, he did, as a matter of fact. I gotta tell you, sometimes when a visitor came to the door and didn't have a bed, Martin said, "You can go into my room."
And that was against the rules of the monastery.
Right. And there was one guy who came in, and he had sores all over him. And Martin said, "You can get in my bed." And Martin cleaned him up and gave him a good night's sleep and gave him food. And Martin slept out in the hallway.
Wow. And he got in trouble for that.
He did. The superior said, "You've got to stop." And you know what Martin's response was? He said, "Father, compassion is preferable to cleanliness. This man needed a room, and I gave it to him." So, there was one time when all the monks who got sick from an epidemic,
Like Corona.
right, a bunch of them were locked in a separate area and they were in quarantine. But they said in the middle of the night, Martin kept appearing and giving them water and a cool rag on their head to make them feel better.
So, that's probably what he would have done.
Except for the superior had the door locked and there was no way he could get in. So he had the gift of bilocation. He would be in two places at once. He'd be sleeping in his bed, but he would be there helping people.
Whoa, that's really holy.
Martin continued to do his work for the sick, and his sister, who lived in Lima, Peru, also began to work at the orphanage that he started, and she was a collaborator with him, and he did so much good. He did so much good in his lifetime for others, especially the poor.
Well, how did he die?
He got ill.
How old was he?
He was 59 years old. Not that old. And, but back in those days, you know.
But he should have had a miracle for him. He gave so many miracles for others.
I know, but God said it's time for you to go, Martin. So on the 3rd of November in 1639, he passed away. He died and entered the gates of heaven.
And is that his feast day too? November 3rd?
Yes, his feast day is November 3rd. He won the affection and respect of all the people in Lima, Peru, and many people in South America and North America. And as a matter of fact, all the Dominican brothers, even the ones that were mean to him and were racial and racist to him, they began to change and be more accepting of others because they saw in Martin a lot of love. And his word of his miracles after his death spread throughout the whole land, and his body was displayed before it was buried for 3 days.
Did anyone come to the funeral besides the Dominican monks?
Yes, the whole city came, and people came from the countryside, and they even were taking small pieces of scissors and cutting off pieces of his garment.
What's that, like a relic?
Yeah, and they did that. And so he was known to be a saint. And guess what, Eugene? 25 years after his death, they put his cause for canonization into Rome. So it was really, really good. That was something like a decree was mentioned in 1763 about Martin's holiness, and he was on the way to become a canonized saint.
So, did that happen fast? I mean, Martin de Porres became a saint pretty fast after his death, like Mother Teresa.
No. Eugene, I gotta tell you again, it took the church 200 years to canonize Martin de Porres.
Uh-oh, here we go again. People don't want to accept that black people could be saints.
He had to. He didn't have to. The church had to open its eyes. And so, again, I must say that it took a long time, to be honest, for Martin to become a saint. Because even in the church, people are like, that guy was from South America. He was black. He was only a brother. He wasn't a pope or anything. So,
holiness doesn't matter what your station in life is. Holiness is something beautiful. And, well, I'm glad it was finally recognized.
yes, so in 1962, Pope John the 23rd canonized Martin finally, and he became an official saint.
What's he the patron of again? You told me before.
Well, he's the patron saint of people of mixed races. He's the patron saint of black Americans.
That's me.
He's the patron saint of innkeepers. He's the patron saint of barbers. He's the patron saint of public health workers. So he has a lot of people pray through his intercession.
And in statues, they always put a little mouse and sometimes a dog in the picture.
Right, like the picture that fell down before. So, what have you learned from Martin's life, Eugene?
Well, there he is. And there's that dog I was looking for.
All right, what did you learn from Martin's life, Eugene, tonight as we did Tabernacle Tuesdays on Martin de Porres?
Well, I learned that racism can be overcome through love. And when it's hard, you gotta keep loving. Don't return insult for insult.
Okay.
I learned that he broke like a color barrier for the church. just like Jackie Robinson did in baseball. He was one of the first religious in America from African American descent who showed that he was really holy and did a great job.
He sure did.
And we need to challenge prejudice through dialogue and perseverance. You can't quit. You still got to be loving. And with the love of God, it's possible. It's possible to overcome racism.
I agree, and I think you said it beautifully. It takes holy people to break down prejudice. People like Martin de Porres.
Thank you, Martin. You're a good example, and I'm going to try to be a good example too. Let's all pray. Let's pray for our country and our world in a very critical time when there's a lot of hurt and pain. Oh God, help us to overcome racist remarks, attitudes, and brutality. Help us to love one another. And Lord, help those people who are not only overreacting, but acting silly and ridiculous and destroying property to stop. And Lord, help all people, white people, Asian people, Native American people, all people to be brothers and sisters. We're one family. And help us to treat each other with respect. And those people who have, I don't know, deep-seated prejudice that came from their families, please forgive them and open up their hearts. Thank you, Jesus, for this time and this wonderful message.
Man, I'm getting a tear in my eye. You were spot on. You really are. Why don't you finish up with a Hail Mary?
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Mary, help the Christians.
Pray for us.
Saint Martin de Porres.
Pray for us.
I love this guy. God bless you all. Take care. Have a good night.
Good job, Eugene. I learned a lot.
Good night, Eugene.